Saul, I saw that Chris Bowen was retained in the reshuffle as Energy and Climate Change Minister. How much of this, it's all happened under his watch, but how much of it is his fault?
It's almost entirely his fault. So if you look at what happened since 2022, the reason we have gas prices as high as they are, and they've disconnected from international prices, right, is because of the policies that Chris Bowen led and introduced, including the gas price cap policy at the end of 2022, where now Labor touts as a success that they've secured less gas for the domestic market than otherwise was going to be produced before their policies were implemented. So their $12 price cap has now become a price floor. Contracts have stayed sustainably above that and often very high levels above that, and that's what's killing projects like this. We've also, we've seen delays due to approvals also in Queensland, Northern Territory, and the South States. Thankfully, Plibersek has been moved on from her portfolio and replaced with some senator, at least, who's from Queensland, so it'll be a little bit more pragmatic, but that's a very low bar to improve from. There was a lot of hope that Chris Bowen would be moved on from his portfolio so we can have a more collaborative and pragmatic approach to our energy market and approvals. Unfortunately, he's staying in that. We can only hope that it's been touted he could be considered for the COP presidency. And if in the next year he could move over to the COP presidency and start making a mess of the COP process instead of making a mess of our energy market, that could be a real win-win for Australia's economy.
Yeah, the COP process are those global warming conferences held by the United Nations in pleasure spots around the world. Plus Azerbaijan, which is not quite a pleasure spot. This election, Australians voted against the party that was promising nuclear power, the coalition obviously. Should that mean the people have spoken no to nuclear ever and we should keep muddling on this way?
I think what's really important is we stop being a country that just stops things and says no to things. We need to start saying yes to things. We need yes to all forms of energy technology. We need to regain our competitive advantage in energy, which is the cornerstone of our highest standard of living compared to the rest of the world. And, it might be worth highlighting, Andrew, you'll recall only 3 months before the election, after a principled long-term stand during his opposition term on nuclear, all the polls and the betting odds were in favour of the coalition. What it didn't present was a near-term solution for those manufacturing jobs, for example, that we've talked about. And what we saw towards as we headed into that end part of the election and the coalition's election campaign, that's when they announced things like the gas reservation policy, which was simply a Labor-like, anti-market, on-the-fly policy announcement. And that's when everything started collapsing for the coalition. I think you could make a pretty strong case to say long-term positive future for all energy sources, not ruling out any technology, including nuclear, and going back to a pro-market, pro-business, Australia winning again strategy is what we need for our energy market and probably what we need across the political landscape in general.
Saul Kavonic, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.